Have you ever felt like you're making great money, but you're not truly wealthy? Today's guest, Brad Gibb, is an expert in turning business profits into real wealth, and he's going to help us learn more about that today. He's cracked the code on how entrepreneurs can scale their business profitably and secure that financial freedom that we're all craving. So, are you ready to make your business sustainable? Let's dive in. So, joining me today is Brad Gibb. He's a wealth strategist and entrepreneur and the mastermind behind the Sovereign Entrepreneur. He's dedicated to helping business owners transform their profits into wealth. Brad, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me on, Jody. I'm excited. This is going to be great.
Yes, I'm so excited. We chatted a little bit about my plan for this episode, and I think it's going to be really awesome. So, okay, let's start at the beginning. You've shifted from traditional finance into like a much more dynamic approach to true wealth building. So, I want to hear a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So I'll go back to, I don't think I've ever done what would ever be considered traditional, although that's where my path started. I studied accounting and finance and statistics and economics and all the things necessary for this path and started at Goldman Sachs. And I thought I was going to go that traditional, more institutional route for wealth. But I started in, it was perfect timing. In 2008 is when I started it with Goldman, actually, late 2007. So I had a front row seat to watching the entire economy collapse in front of everybody. And that was a wake up call to really actually understanding the difference between investing or what is spoon fed to the mass population. And I got to see behind the scenes of how real, actual lasting wealth through something like that was built. And the conclusion I came to was, it's not what you think it is. And at the core of all of this was actually entrepreneurship. Those that had amassed wealth that could sustain through something like a 2007, 2008, it had nothing to do with their investing strategies or what they had picked or what their allocations were, anything that we're told it is. It all rested on the fact that they were entrepreneurs. And so I actually took a hiatus from the wealth game and went out and decided I needed to become an entrepreneur first. So I went and started consulting business. We were CFOs for hires. We took companies public. And I learned the ins and outs, earned my stripes as entrepreneurs. And then I evolved and shifted that business back over to the wealth side. And then most recently, I think what you're more talking about is in the last couple of years, I've sort of a broader array of people with these wealth tactics and strategies that we've learned and mastered. But now I've actually narrowed my focus and gone all in on just working with the founder entrepreneur working to do what you just said, take the success they've had in their business and figure out how to make that sustainable, how to transfer that into the wealth that they had wanted. So we've cut everything else, and that's the only thing we're now doing, and we've gone deep into that.
I love that. I love that. So, what would you say then are some common misconceptions with entrepreneurs that we have when it comes to profit versus like genuine wealth?
Ooh, that is a great starting point. So I think the first like mentality I would point out is like you said in the intro, and you and I have talked about this. I've talked about this with lots of people. Is like I thought that when I would my business got successful and money would be coming in, I'd be able to just figure this out. And it just never seems to ever be enough. I grow, revenue comes in, my business grows, but it never seems to make it all the way down to what I had sort of pictured as wealth. So the first thing I tell people is, that's not really your fault, because the skill set to make money and grow a business, even though it has to do with dollars and returns and figures and things that feel like wealth building, it's a completely different skill set to then keep and manage that wealth that comes in. It's like two halves of your brain. They work totally, completely differently. And so if we don't learn how that needs to be done and what that skill set looks like, we won't ever. And we call this the difference between there's an income game and there's a wealth game, and they have different rules and they have different things that we play by, and we operate them very differently. And we need to learn both. So that's the first place that I would start is help people understand that there is a difference. And if we're not learning it, that's that.
Yeah. And looking at people that are ahead of me, even in their wealth building, right? I know you're in Taylor Welch's world, and I look at like what he's got going on, what he talks about, his wealth, like it feels so far away from me.
Unattainable.
Say that again.
So unattainable. Yep.
It does. It feels unattainable. And it is because I feel like I'm stuck in that cycle of like, you know, revenue comes in, I pay my team, I take my cut, and then like what's left, I'm kind of just kind of hanging on to in savings. And, you know, for that time when I might be low on clients or something like that, it's like, how do you get out of that cycle?
Yep. Yep. It and you're talking about all the issues that we're dealing with, and this is why the change we made recently of why we needed to just focus on working only with business owners is
Mhm.
you as a business owner have these barriers or impediments to building wealth that the average person doesn't have. Like if I have a job, I don't need a couple 100,000 sitting on the sideline in case my ads stop working, but I have to pay my
Yeah.
team and I need to figure out through. Like that isn't like this isn't something you have to plan for.
Mhm.
Where as business owners, we have to make sure that we're feeding the machine that is creating all of this, and then simultaneously pull capital from that and be able to learn to invest. And I've
Mm.
got kids at home, so for those that have kids, this will make sense. Like we call this the cookie monster problem. Like your business creates a lot of cash, but it will also eat and consume all the cash that you ever give it. There's no end to that.
Yeah.
So the first thing we talk about, and this is Taylor is very good at this, and the business owners you see make this transition from profitability, a good solid business, into wealth, is they understand a mental transition from income to assets. And it's not that we go buy assets. It's we start by turning our business into an asset first.
Mm.
And where the reason most entrepreneurs don't like to talk to wealth people is they just want to come and pull all the money out of your business, and you feel exposed, you feel like that's dangerous, you feel like it's irresponsible. We don't do that because I've gone through building a business and I understand what that goes through. We first focus on stabilizing the business as an asset, so we reduce that variability you're used to dealing with in the business to then give us permission. So a lot of times we'll spend time with our business owners understanding what it takes to turn that business you have into something that's a lot more stable than it is, and invest in the business wisely to then give us a platform to start looking external. Because we do have to build wealth externally, but we can't do it the way your business is structured and operating and running right now. And most business owners, because they don't approach business from a pure business standpoint. They approached it from they were an expert somewhere and they turned that expertise into a business. They're lacking some of the basic blocking and tackling. And so typically we start there. And then that opens the door into then replicating that with assets that are outside of our business.
Hmm. Hmm. So interesting. So interesting. So you did make that mention about Facebook ads, right? Like if the Facebook ads stop working, we've got to have the revenue still there or, you know, money set aside to be able to cover the revenue that was coming from there. And so Facebook ads are my jam. I'm not going to take that personally, but I do want to talk about that, like the scaling and the paid ads part. And honestly, like what's your advice for entrepreneurs who are deciding between say reinvesting profits back into ads versus shifting towards wealth building assets? I am a firm believer that Facebook ads are a huge way to grow your business. And that's probably more on the growing your profit side versus
Uh-huh.
growing your wealth. So let's talk about this a little bit.
Okay, let's get on the same side of the table first before we go
Yeah.
head to head, because we'll need to toe off head to head. But on the same side of the table, I agree that the best money you can ever spend anywhere is in paid media, because the return, like if I can put $1,000 into paid media and have it turn into $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 in a week or 2 weeks, like that rate of return. If I tried to tell my clients I could get them that rate of return, like they're taking me off to jail because I'm a Ponzi scheme. Like
Right.
you can't produce those types of returns. So one of the things I stress with my clients is if you don't know how much it costs to go buy a client, you don't yet have an asset in the business. So I highly discourage external investment from your business until you know what that model looks like and you've tested it and proven it. That's what you need to invest in. So we're on the same
Yeah.
side of the table there. But
Yeah.
if you don't know how to go buy and acquire clients, you're taking too much risk pulling money out of the business and putting it somewhere else.
100%. That's where clients and I have to really align when I'm onboarding clients. I'm like, how much are you willing to pay to acquire a client? And they're like, well, I don't know, as long as it's profitable. I'm like, really? Because you're selling a $20,000 thing. You want me to pay 19,000?
Yep.
Right? You're still profitable. But for me, I know my hard and fast rule. I'm willing to pay $1,000 to acquire a client, period.
Uh-huh.
Whether it's from a referral, whether it's from Facebook ads, through my funnels, anything like that. I know exactly what my cost per acquisition needs to be. And I think that is huge. It's a huge piece where people have no idea what their numbers are.
I mean, yeah, it's the philosopher's stone to growing your business. It's that magic elixir that makes that growth possible. Now, then where we go to the other side of it is at some point. So the analogy I like to use is no tree grows to the sky, right? There's natural limitation to certain types of scale. And this is where making money online has become almost too easy, because once we get that figured out, then we can spend all of our money on Facebook ads forevermore and at least theoretically grow this thing to the sky. But we're going to run into some sort of limitation. So the other half of the conversation is I say, look, if we're only dependent upon Facebook ads, paid media, that's where we don't own an asset yet. We can create a lot of income, but I run people through examples of what would happen if we stopped ads. And if we stop ads and our business dies, that's the next problem to address. So I work with clients to say, look, get our paid media running, figure out what a sustainable level of ad spend is. And before we just say, why wouldn't I just constantly reinvest forevermore into this? That becomes the answer. Is we can actually build something. It's like having a tiger by the tail, that analogy of like, if the only way we grow is by spending more, then the reverse of that becomes true, that if performance declines, if everything is built on that, we're building a house of cards. So understanding what other adjustments or aspects to our business model we need to put in place to make us not solely dependent upon paid ads, becomes the next conversation. And that's where I'd say, all right, if you're up and profitable at 10,000 a month or 20,000 a month or 30,000 a month, we need to pick a point in time where we stop reinvesting in that and we start building stability to what we've done so that we can deal with ups and downs. Because you're used to dealing with ups and downs with just cash in the bank, right? We can deal with stability through our business model, through how we generate revenue, through repeat business, through other forms of revenue into the business that aren't paid ads. That way, if my paid ads run into a hiccup, my business can still continue to operate. And then that frees up my existing capital. So that's usually the trap we're trying to get somebody out of. I'll take my business example. I could stop all paid acquisition of clients tomorrow and still pay my entire team for essentially the foreseeable future off of known sources of leads that I don't have to pay for and from recurring revenue that I built into my business. So that means when I do run paid ads, it's actually true profit. It's not running ads to cover operations. And that's when our business starts turning into an asset. And if we solve that, that becomes the doorway to then say, cool, when I'm reinvesting in ads, I'm generating profits, and those profits can be reinvested. It's not generating operating capital to run my business. And that's where most people get sucked into this trap of like, where's all my money going? Well, yeah, we're making it on paper because we're looking at ROAS, but all of that has to then go to fulfillment and then reinvested. And we're just on this treadmill of growth.
Right. Like a hamster wheel, right? Like, how do they get off?
And they can't. Like, I ran a business for a while that way of like, we could not get out. We could not do anything except buy more media. And every free dollar of cash in the business had to go to supporting buying more media. And it took readjusting and reorganizing. It actually took a Facebook jail sentence and being slapped in the face to say, wait a minute, we're actually way too dependent on this and we need to re-engineer how our business works to be able to do that. So initially, yeah, we should figure out something that is proven to work in the marketplace, throw fuel on it through paid ads, and then come back and stabilize our business. So like find a plateau that a foothold we can sustain. And before we just say, great, I'm going from 10 to 50 to 100 to 300 to a million in paid ads, we need to find a stopping point and ensure that we've built the other areas of our business to, again, like I said, begin turning that into an asset.
That's amazing. I hadn't thought about it that way because I keep thinking about like, okay, the only way to scale my business, like if I want to double my revenue, I have to double my client load. That's not necessarily true. because I could have revenue coming in from other sources by investing in like wealth building assets. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So you could do any number of things, right? You could double the amount that you charge. Well, that wouldn't take now, a lot of people are like, oh, double your prices. No, you could re-engineer what you do for clients and make it twice as valuable as it is now. And that would take time and effort and money to be able to do that. And now, same number of clients, double the revenue. That's,
Yeah.
a pathway. You
Yep.
could reinvest in your business to do the same amount of work within half the time. So that increases our profitability, right? That can improve the value of the business to you without having to increase revenue really at all. Or like in your case, client base.
Mhm.
And then eventually you're going to run into an efficiency limit where more clients require more overhead and more team members and more cost, which again doesn't necessarily put any more money in your pocket. So there's lots of areas we can invest in our business to turn it into a much more sustainable, profitable asset that just isn't reliant on income, right? It's
Yeah.
I want to drive profitability. What would it take to double my profitability? Because it's not always the case that an extra dollar, actually it's never the case that an extra dollar yields an extra dollar of profitability. And sometimes we've got this diminishing return on our revenue. And so we need to find where that point, and that's to get a little more technical. I'm like, spend until you start to see diminishing profitability. Then we need to figure out how to hold our ground there and stop buying more media because that puts us on the hamster wheel, and figure out how to sustain our profit margin at that point. So we scale until our profit margin starts to diminish. Then we hold our ground, we reinvest and figure out the business. And then that should allow us to scale a second time or a third time or a fourth time from there.
Yeah. 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 Ah, wild. My wheels are turning.
Yeah.
We might have to have an offline conversation about this.
But I'm so glad because so many people look at me as like, or they look at the wealth industry as like, well, I just can't do that because I don't have money. I
Yeah.
can't come
I
up
can't
with it. I
afford
can't,
that.
yeah, I can't afford, I'll talk to you when I'm rich. And I laugh and I'm like, you would never tell, a trainer that like, oh, I'll come to you after I've already lost 30 pounds. Like, no, we have to solve the actual problem, which is we're not running our business the way that we should be running our business to create wealth. We're running it to maximize income, not profitability. And we have to, so when I say that's the shift we need to make first, if we're going to investing, we're jumping a critical required step to be able to get ourselves there. And that's
Mhm.
why we only focus with business owners is that's step number one for us before we have any conversation about investing or deploying capital. If your business is not an asset, we've got to solve that problem first. And we're the only wealth group I know about that spends time with the client engineering this, because then I can create the profits that we need to go invest. And I don't have to pull from your lifestyle. I don't have to pull back from your business. We don't need to cut. Like, we literally come in and engineer it into the business. And then with that engineered profit, we can now have everything we want to go invest without pulling you from what you're already good at in your business.
Yeah. Yeah. Wild. More people need to do this. More people need to talk to you. So, what do you think then is the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs are making that limits their financial freedom? I mean, we're probably putting these limitations on ourselves, and it's probably just a lack of information. So, even when revenue is high, we're somehow limiting ourselves on getting to financial freedom. What's the mistake that we're making there?
Okay, so this one's hard to see. So, okay, I've got a 4-year-old. I have actually 6 kids. My last one is 4. So I've done this many times. When they're scared at night, they come down and they say some variation of there's a monster under the bed, there's a monster in the closet, right?
Mhm.
We can't say, oh, like we were the mean parents are like, well, you can't sleep with us, so we got to go figure this out, right? So what do? You take your child back in and you open the closet and you turn on the lights and you show that there's no monster there, right? We look at the thing we're afraid to look at. The
Mm.
business owner, like that is the mistake we're making as a business owner, is we're not looking at the thing that we actually need to solve. And we default back, just like you said, to the thing that we're good at. Like, well, I know I can run ads. I know I can spend $1,000 and get I will just solve my problems through the skill set I've already done, and somehow magically it will fix itself.
Mhm.
And we've all had that. Like, we've all told ourselves, oh, once my business is doing 1 million, all my problems will go away. And then our business does 1 million, and then it's like, well, at 5 million or
Yeah,
10
new
million or
problems.
always, right? And if we keep using the same approach to solve the problem, we're going to continue to have the same problem. And that's one of the biggest lies in all of money, is that more money will solve my problems.
Yeah.
That's right. We have to start solving different problems. And so too many times our clients just don't want to look at the monster under the bed and solve a problem that they're not comfortable solving, because they're just like,
Yeah,
oh, it's
honestly, I
easier
think
for me to
so
make
many
money.
people they're so busy sleeping that they're not even aware that there's a monster under the bed. Like,
That
they don't
too.
even know.
So being aware of it, and what specifically do we need, because that gives us the mentality here, but the actual problem that ends up being solved, that we need to stare in the face and look at, is if you've got a job running the business, but we need to run our wealth at the same time. And
Mhm,
we feel like we have this trade-off of, if I don't run my business, it will cost me way too much to go then learn whatever the wealth principles are. And the problem with that is it's absolutely true. Like, a friend of mine, Steve Larson, one time he shot me a Voxer message and was like, "Hey, dude, give me the top 10 books that I need to read on investing. I'm ready to do it." And my response was like, "No, please, no, do not. Like, you're too good at what you're doing to spend any time on this. That would be like, I'm going to learn bookkeeping so that I can do." No, no, look, there are people we can hire for this. The
mhm,
problem with wealth is, so the problem we have you look at is, wealth building is a team sport. It's not a, you're now going to take this on and solve this problem. And
mhm,
so we call this, we've got to get you out of being the monkey in the middle. Because as we start trying to solve wealth problems, you now have to talk to your bookkeeper, your accountant, your tax preparer, your attorney, your real
mhm,
estate guy, your insurance guy. Like, we have all
mhm,
these people that need answers from you, and you don't have the answers.
mm-mm,
And so that's usually when that pressure starts to come on and you realize you're like, yeah, I don't want to talk to any of these people. We just go back to what we're already good at, and we just run more ads and we make more money and we pretend like the problem's going to go away. And then it doesn't.
and the
So
monster's still under the bed.
it's still there. We turn on the lights and take a look at this. So for us, what we do is, the solution we've brought to that is, Jody, you're right. You shouldn't be the one talking to all these people. That's not your skill set. You don't have the answers. And you shouldn't spend the time getting that skill set, because then you're not running your business. So
Mhm,
what we do is we come in and, just like, so this plagued me in marketing. I'm not great at marketing. Like, I know the concepts of it and I've learned it, but it just isn't how my brain works. And for a while, became a monkey in the middle in the marketing. I had to talk to my copywriter, my funnel builder, and my MarTech person, and my paid ads person. And I all of a sudden didn't have the answers, and I wanted to hide from that monster.
mhm,
And then someone came along and slapped me upside the head, "Brad, you're an idiot. You're doing this wrong." And I said, "Okay, please, thank you, but please tell me why." And they're like, "There's this person called a chief marketing officer. You
mm,
hire that person, and that person talks to your copywriter, your funnel person, your MarTech person, your ad spend, and you just have one person that you need to talk to. That seems way easier." So I hired a CMO, and then I could continue scaling. The problem on the wealth side is there isn't the equivalent of a chief marketing officer. We all expect our CPA to tell us what to do with our money. But guys, CPAs are the most conservative. We never want to ask advice of our CPA. They give us the worst advice. They're stuck looking in the rearview mirror. They only know what happened over the last 12 months. They don't look forward into what's coming, right? And some
mhm,
people want to ask their attorney. Attorneys are smart. No, we don't. Attorneys are the worst people to ask advice from, because they're just going to tell you to do nothing that ever takes any risk at all. Like, they're the worst person. We can't go talk to our real estate person, because what are they going to do? Sell you more real estate. The solution is always the thing that they're selling. Like, we don't have somebody that can sit in that role, which was the pivot we made 2 years ago. And we came to the realization of working with entrepreneurs that were like, wait a minute, the problem isn't that you don't have a good enough CPA or good enough attorney or good enough opportunity or the right investments or understanding real estate. The problem is you're monkey in the middle. And what you
mhm,
need is a chief wealth officer. The same way I needed a chief marketing officer, you need a chief wealth officer who can be a single point of accountability, can speak accountant and real estate and taxes and lawyer and all of that stuff.
mhm,
And they can work with you to come up with the strategy that's necessary, right? Analyze, what are the investments we need to make in the business? How do we need to be structured to reduce our taxes? How much capital
mhm,
do we need to keep and hold on to? And what investments make the most sense for all the constraints that you're dealing with?
mhm.
And then get all of those other professionals on the same page, make sure they're doing what they need to be doing, help align all of those decisions, and bring back the information for you to make qualified, informed decisions.
Yeah,
That's what's needed.
yeah,
But it doesn't
yeah,
exist, Jody. There aren't
100%.
those people out there.
Say
That's
that
why we
again?
just created the program. So that was the shift that we said was, this is why we have to stop doing everything else we're doing and become the chief wealth officer to that founding entrepreneur so they can
Yeah.
grow wealth.
Yeah. Yeah. Wild. So awesome. I love this so much. Okay, I'm going to move into our next segment and I've got some rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah.
It's okay if they spur some extra conversation, but essentially, like, I'm going to ask you a
Rapid fire.
question and I want to just have like top of mind answer.
Okay,
All right, you ready?
let's go.
Okay. What is your favorite financial book and why?
My favorite financial book is actually Ready, Fire, Aim by Mark Ford, because it talks about this bridging this skill set between income and wealth inside of your business. So it actually talks nothing about actually investing, but it freed me from that entrepreneurial trap very first. So that's the one I would tell entrepreneurs to read. That's my favorite one
Ready, fire, aim. Okay.
by
I
Mark
think I have it
Masters.
on my bookshelf. I have not read it. That's a habit of mine.
Mhm.
I'll buy the book. I'm like, I got it. I'm going to learn by osmosis, maybe
Yep,
put it on
it's
my
on the
pillow.
shelf. I'll mow it someday.
Yeah. Okay, number 1 financial advice that you wish you had gotten sooner.
That the world of wealth advice is not built for the entrepreneur. Crazy stat. Do you know what percentage of people in the US work for themselves?
10%.
7.
Okay, I was close.
You were close. 7
Of all the numbers.
of everybody. Right. So what that means is 93% of the advice given out there is not for you or me, because 93% of the people are not running and growing and working for themselves and running their own business.
The
So
Dave Ramsey advice, that's for the 93%.
it's for the 93%, right? And everything you hear on MSNBC or Fox News or wherever you're getting your financial advice, you're talking to your local CPA, your investment advisor, all of those people are servicing the 93%, not an entrepreneur. You need to get the advice that is custom tailored to somebody who's an entrepreneur. And it's
Mm,
completely different than what you've heard. I wish I
mhm.
had known that a lot sooner, because I wouldn't have spent time in all of the advice that didn't apply to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Still good to know. No regrets. Okay, best habit. I have that as a tattoo, by the way, no regrets. So, all right, best habit you've cultivated that has contributed to your success.
Best habit. Okay, I'm going to give 2. The first one is prayer. I don't have the answers and my advisors don't have the answers. So I figure, why don't I just go to the person that has the answers that are for me? So
Mhm.
I've cultivated a deep habit of prayer, inspiration, introspection on what decisions I should make. Because at the end of the day, there ends up, for me anyway, there was always, I could narrow it down to a couple of really good paths, but then I couldn't see a difference between any of those. And so I would just ask the person who can see a lot further into it than I am and tell me which path to take. So
Mhm.
I've
Mhm.
partnered with God in my business to say, "Hey, I'm stewarding this, but I need direction from that."
Bless me with confirmation or make it hard and
Yep.
tell me to go a different
Give
direction.
me the confidence
Absolutely.
that I can get through this, any and all of those things that. And then the second one is very close to that, is I've surrounded myself with good advisors, right? People who care about me, know me, have
Mhm.
have gone through the things that I have. I always have somebody that is giving me comprehensive advice, not an expert. Like, we need a really good person in paid ads. Like that expert, I've always had experts, but then I've got advisors who are a level above that are willing to show me what I'm not looking at, right? And tell me that the hard things that I'm avoiding. And so I've always worked to have a good set of advisors around me to obviously help me see what I can't see. They're
Yeah.
the same answer, good advisors, and one is God and one is somebody that's been through this and is willing to tell you the hard truth.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's amazing. Okay. Biggest myth about wealth that you want to debunk.
Biggest myth about wealth that I will debunk. Okay, this will be a good one. Rate of return is completely and totally irrelevant. It doesn't matter and it doesn't really exist. What we want as entrepreneurs is not rate of return. Because Jody, if I brought you any rate of return investment, you're like, I could destroy that with ads, right? So it has nothing to do with rate of return. If we only make rate of return decisions, we stay stuck on those hamster wheel type things. What we
Mhm.
have to look at is wealth accomplishes an outcome that we're seeking. I'm going to expand on this in a minute. I know it was supposed to be rapid fire, but this will be good.
You're fine.
I think about it this way. Like, look at professional athletes. Look at, you know, Joe Montana. At one point, he was the greatest quarterback, but at the end of his career, he was cut from the Chiefs before the Chiefs were good, right? When the Chiefs were the worst team, he ended up being cut. But on Sports Center, when they talk about Joe Montana, they don't talk about him getting cut, right? They talk about what? The championships he won. So in sports, there's this thing of once a champion, always a champion. If you can win a championship, you're always in that conversation.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, in business, the same thing doesn't exist. If you, as a business owner, work, blood, sweat, tears, grow a massively amazing business, and then make a mistake and lose it, what's everybody talk about?
The loss.
The loss. And that's it. So we need the equivalent of a Super Bowl trophy in the world of business, where once we achieve a level of success, we get to maintain it forevermore.
Isn't that what a 2 Comma Club award is?
How many of them do you know that are not where you want them to be, right?
Right.
So it that does, and that is wealth. But again, it's not rate of return. It is the only reason I ever invest outside of my business is to create cash flow. Cash flow becomes that Super Bowl ring because if my business goes away, but I have investments that are covering my own lifestyle, now I can lose a business and restart a business and I don't get knocked out of the game.
Mhm.
So it's not, we don't invest to get a better rate of return because that exists in our business. We can always produce a better rate of return in our business. But the thing our business can't give us is cash flow that's not linked to our own knowledge, time, expertise, involvement on the business side of it. That's
Mhm.
the only thing that we need outside of our business and why we invest. So
Yeah,
that
100
Super Bowl
100%.
ring is what we're going for.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was thinking about that when you said, like, that rate of return is a myth, like, that it's not what matters, because there is a big difference between, like, if somebody's investing money and I'm getting money back that way versus, like, if I hire a paid ads team and I have to, manage that and approve assets and shoot videos and all these things, like, there's the lift that comes with it too, of, like, how much effort do I have to put in to make that money?
Yep.
Sure, it's a great rate of return, but how much effort do I have to put into doing that?
Yep.
So yeah,
Exactly.
interesting. Okay, last one.
Let's go.
If you lost everything tomorrow, what's your first step to rebuild?
My first step to rebuild, if I lost everything tomorrow. Oh man, that is good. So for me, I'm actually coming out of a season. I didn't lose it, but I intentionally turned it off and shut it down to rebuild. And what I did is I went back to the skill set that I know is guaranteed to produce money. So for
Mhm.
me, if I can network my way into a face-to-face conversation with somebody, they will give me money. No questions asked. So I
I'm
know
ready to, honestly.
I know what my double down skill is, and
Yeah.
it is a face-to-face connection with my ideal person. So I would just put myself in the room with the person I know that has the problem and I can solve. And that's how we restarted this. Now, Russell Brunson's answer might be different. His would be webinar, right? He would build a webinar. Like that's what he would do to be able to do. That's his skill set, right? Eileen
Mhm.
Wilder, she'd be like, get me on a stage. If
Yep.
I lost it all I need is get on a stage and I can solve my problem. So it's
Yep.
knowing what that skill set is. And me, it's a one-to-one solving the problem for, it's for me, it's always been the entrepreneur is I would just beg, borrow, and steal my way into a room and I'd be able to one-to-one high ticket solve that person's problem and double down on the skill set that I know has always paid the bills.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Love it. I think that's true for a lot of people that, yeah, the one-to-one networking conversations, rub elbows with the right people, become known as the expert for sure. All right, Brad, how can our listeners stay connected with you, learn more about your work and what you guys are doing at the Sovereign Entrepreneur?
Awesome, Jody. Thank you for asking. Thank you for having me on. This has been super fun. So for those that want to know, again, for me to help solve problems for somebody, there's a lot that needs to be into it. But in order to get to a point there, there's actual like reprogramming I need to do and how we think about wealth, right? I need to get you comfortable looking under the bed. I need to get you rewired in understanding the difference between income and investing. And I need to purge all the Dave Ramsey stuff you've ever heard before, all of that. So I've actually just put together some coursework training that I would want to share with everybody that just says, look, here's how to rewire and work. I call it the energy of wealth. And so this is actually anytime I speak or present, I do that at pretty high level groups, Russell, Taylor, those types of things. So you have to be paying tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes to be in the rooms where I actually present because I don't do a lot of presenting outside of that.
Yeah.
But the free thing I want to give to your listeners that are interested is a peek behind that curtain to where you can see the last time I've done that. So if you'll go to Sovereign Entrepreneur, I know that no one's going to be able to spell that. I'm sorry in advance.
Those are both really hard words to
Two
spell.
French words back to back was a terrible idea, but I did it anyway. So sovereignentrepreneur.com/podcast. It'll take you straight to I think it's about 4 hours of content that will take you through that rewiring to really actually understand how wealth works, how it integrates with our businesses, how we need to be thinking about it so that then if you're ready and the solutions present themselves, we're not fighting you and your preconceived ideas of how this works, and we can actually work to get results. So that's probably the best thing I can give you. And then in there, I do a newsletter. I'm really not consistent at it. So don't hate me if I disappear for 3 months, because I'm an introvert and sometimes I need to crawl into a cave and not talk to anybody. But you'll also get updates from us on that type, keep that conversation moving. So that's where I'd send you. So sovereignentrepreneur.com/podcast. And then, like I said, it's called The Energy of Wealth, because it reworks of how we can approach wealth while preserving, protecting the most valuable resource that we actually have. It's not time, it's not money, it's actually our energy.
Mhm.
The depth of involvement we can have in the thing. And so that's where we always start the conversation.
I love that. I love that. All right. So, to our listeners, I will make sure that we have the link around this video, either in the show notes or on the website, on the blog. So, Brad, thank you so much for sharing these powerful insights today. I said this on my last interview too. This was like a whole masterclass. This was like, I mean, we could turn this content into a really amazing masterclass. Like, there was a lot of information that you dropped here and it was phenomenal. So, to our listeners, remember that turning profits into wealth isn't magic. It's simply a strategy. So if you apply Brad's insights here for today or what you listen to in his podcast series, you can watch your success turn into lasting freedom. So don't forget to subscribe, rate, leave a review, and tune in next week. Share this episode with anybody who you think might benefit from hearing Brad's information. So thank you again for joining us on $1 Million Marketing. We'll see you next week.